If you want to lower your risk of cancer, you need to know that inflammation is a major trigger for cancer growth. And we're also talking about cancer from the perspective of prevention as well as intervention. I'm a cancer researcher, so you come to the right place to learn about what's real about cancer prevention, what's the science, what's the human evidence, how do we apply this into our own lives. So if this is something that you want to actually apply to yourself, then you got to watch the end of this video, okay? All right, ready? Let's go. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, what is a legume? All right, that sets the stage for figuring out which ones are actually good for cancer prevention, and which ones are my favorites, frankly. So first thing you need to know is legumes are a whole family of foods. And these foods actually date back 40,000 human years of history, way back to like Neolithic period. It's actually when we discovered. These include the beans and the peas, right? So basically legumes are kidney beans, navy beans, lima beans, mung beans, soybeans, chickpeas, regular spring peas, lentils. So these are probably beans and peas that you've actually eaten before. And by the way, they're all fruits, or the seeds of fruits, that can be dried and stored for long periods of time, which is why they date back so long, because they were actually easily preserved, all right? The other reason that they were eaten for so long, going way back, is that these legumes, the beans and peas, are great sources of protein to be able to keep the body running. And they're also good sources of dietary fiber. So long before we knew about the gut microbiome, humans were eating these because they knew that they actually did something good for them. And the fiber, as we'll talk about, helps to lower inflammation in the body, which actually helps us move along healthier, and the protein fuels our strength. All right. The other thing about legumes, all right, beans and peas, is that they are good sources of micronutrients like vitamin B, like iron, like potassium, like zinc. Now, none of these micronutrients by themselves are a game changer, but when you actually add them all together and stick them into a little tiny thing that's got good protein and good fiber that can be stored, dried for months to years, you're talking about a really valuable food ingredient, all right? And this is an ingredient that goes into some of my favorite dishes that we're going to talk about, all right? So, by the way, another interesting thing is my friend Dan Buettner, who wrote about the blue zones and actually researches the blue zones, told me that beans are actually one of the common denominator foods across all the blue zones. You probably heard of blue zones. These are the countries around the world where people tend to live longevity, and they tend to live well. And if you're living long and well, you're probably fighting cancer, you're probably lowering inflammation, and you're probably healing yourself really well, which is basically why we're actually talking about legumes in this video. All right. So what are some of the legumes that are my favorites that can actually achieve this goal of longevity and fight cancer and help healing? Well, the first one is the lentil. All right. You've probably eaten lentils before, but if you haven't, you're really missing out. They're absolutely tasty and delicious. Now, lentils are small, flattish, edible seeds that come in a whole variety of colors. There's green lentils, there's black lentils, there's brown lentils, and there's yellow lentils. And if you go to the middle section of the grocery store and look by the beans section, lentils will actually come in bags, sometimes in canisters, and they are powerhouses for your gut because of the amount of dietary fiber they actually have. Now, I wrote about lentils in my book, Eat to Beat Disease. I got it right here. Check it out. If you haven't read it, I strongly recommend it. Eat to Beat Disease. It's got a lot of stuff in here about food doses and all the different kinds of foods that can activate your health defenses to fight cancer. There's whole sections about cancer-fighting foods in there. But for lentils, the dietary fiber and the polyphenols feed the gut microbiome. Okay, that's one of the reasons that lentils are good for you. And when the good bacteria in your gut microbiome are well fed, they produce these anti-inflammatory substances that they release into the bloodstream. And these substances are called short chain fatty acids. Short S, chain C, fatty F, acid A, SCFA. We sometimes call them SCAFAs, all right? That's what scientists do. We come up with abbreviations for tongue twisters. But basically, when you eat dietary fiber, and which is prebiotic, as well as polyphenols, also prebiotic, and you really make your gut bacteria happy, because they're basically like eating up the dietary fiber and the polyphenols, which make them thrive. They will generate metabolites. So as a matter of their own life, they'll spit out these SCAFAs, short-chain fatty acids, that goes into our bloodstream. And you know what the short-chain fatty acids do? It lowers inflammation. Really, really important thing, okay? So if you want to lower your risk of cancer, you need to know that inflammation is a major trigger for cancer growth. So by lowering inflammation, by activating your gut microbiome, by feeding yourself and your gut bacteria dietary fiber and polyphenols that are prebiotics, and getting those fiber and prebiotics from lentils, one of my favorite legumes, you're actually able to help tip the balance in your body against cancer growth by lowering inflammation. All right. Now, let me tell you how inflammation actually sparks cancer growth. There's a lot of different ways. One thing is that inflammatory cells can release cytokines. These are sort of growth fertilizers to the cancer cells in order to make the cancer cells divide and grow more aggressively. So the cytokines from inflammatory cells that are part of inflammation actually just make the cancer start rip-roaring in terms of its own growth potential. The other thing that inflammatory cells do, inflammation, is they trigger blood vessels to grow around cancer cells, around the tumor. And these blood vessels actually grow towards the inflammation and into the cancer cells mass, where they begin to feed the cancer cells. What I mean by that is that cancer cell, when a cancer starts, it doesn't have a blood supply. But when actually inflammation sets in, it's one of the factors that can actually attract new blood vessels that grow up towards the tumor. And those new blood vessels bring oxygen and nutrients that begin feeding the cancer. Now, I worked in a laboratory that studied this. And what was shown is that if you keep a tumor without a blood supply, it can't grow larger than 2 to 3 millimeters in diameter. That's about the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen. But if you allow the blood vessels to grow up and touch that nest of cancer cells, and bringing that oxygen, bringing those nutrients, it can actually cause the tumor, the cancer, to grow 16,000 times in just 2 weeks. All right, that's explosive cancer growth permitted by angiogenesis, blood vessel growth, how they grow. So tumor angiogenesis is not what you want, but inflammation actually helps spark that tumor angiogenesis. So by eating foods that lower inflammation, you're actually tipping the balance away from growing cancer, right? That's cancer prevention, all right? That's very important to understand. Now, the other thing that inflammation can actually do to a cancer is it can actually help to spark more mutations within a cancer, because inflammation, starts to release all these cytokines, as I mentioned to you earlier, as the cancer cells are provoked to grow, all right? It's kind of like just chugging gasoline onto the embers of a fire. Now the fire's burning, go like crazy. Mutations can occur, more mutations than the tumor had originally. And that will actually cause the cancer to get more aggressive as well, okay? Cancers are normal cells that become abnormal because of mutations, and those mutations are damage to the DNA, all right? So back to the lentil, the short chain fatty acids that your gut microbiome will release after you eat lentils actually helps quell the inflammation, which then makes tumors much less likely to grow aggressively. Now, the other thing that is really interesting is that lentils can help your body's self-defense system cut off the blood supply to growing tumors. Now, I talk about the blood vessels and how to cut off the blood vessels feeding cancer in an online course that I teach. So if you're interested in learning a lot more, check out my online course. I teach it every now and then, it's really, I've actually had more than 6,000 people from 90 countries that have taken my courses now. All right. Now, what you need to understand is that your body's own angiogenesis health defense keeps good, healthy blood vessels maintained wherever they need to be, but also prevents extra blood vessels like cancers are trying to get for themselves quelled. All right. So you don't actually grow extra blood vessels. So it's anti-angiogenesis against tumors, but keeping good circulation where they need to be. All right. So to fight cancer and prevent cancer, you want to eat foods that can actually help your body block those tumor stimulated blood vessels at all costs. Now, lab studies have shown that what's in a lentil can actually do that, which is pretty cool. All right. Now, lentils are also packed with folate, a kind of vitamin B, and that kind of vitamin actually helps to your body repair DNA. So that's another advantage of how lentils can prevent cancer. Basically, you got a mutation, could be a cancer, actually goes in there to actually fix it. So think about like somebody who comes in to replace a cracked bathroom tile before you wind up actually having leaking from your shower into the wall. So by fixing that cracked tile, basically how folate can actually repair DNA. It helps to avoid mutations and all the complications and damage that can occur downstream. And by the way, where do those mutations actually come from? Well, a lot comes from our environment. About 90 to 95% of cancers are linked to our diet and lifestyle. Only 5 to 10% are actually linked to our genetics. So we hear all this stuff about cancer and genetics and screening and BRCA. Those are all really important, but the vast majority of cancers that you've heard about, that you know people who might have suffered from cancer, maybe yourself, those are linked to diet and lifestyle, okay? Check this out. I've got a free guide on my favorite breakfast foods to eat for longevity. From what's in my mug to what I look for when I buy these staples at the grocery store. It's all right here. All you have to do is click on the link and enjoy. Now, let's talk about diet and lifestyle and environment. Got to include the environment there because factors like ultraviolet radiation from the sun, chemical additives in your food, fumes from the off-gassing of your new carpet or your new furniture or your new car, or inhaled smoke that comes from air pollution. You don't even see the smoke necessarily, but there's a lot of pollution in the air. All those things, when they get into our body, one way or the other, can actually set up the situation where DNA is mutated. Those mutations turn into abnormal cells, turn normal cells into abnormal cells. And those abnormal cells, actually very quickly, when they're copy and pasted, can become a microscopic cancer. All right. All DNA damage is actually one of the hallmarks of cancer. And guess what? Folate that's present in the lentil can counter that, fix that error in the DNA. Now, the other thing is that lentils are a great source of protein. Now, if you want to have healthy aging, so we're not talking about cancer now, we're just talking about healthy aging, you need to have enough protein. That's really important. You know, really after the age of 40, you got to really pay attention how much protein you're actually eating. Now, the protein also helps your body heal, right? So if you've got an injury or you have surgery and you're going to need to heal up your wounds, you need an adequate protein for your body to be able to create those building blocks to be able to heal that wound, all right? So again, lentils are a good source of the proteins, the polyphenols, and the dietary fiber to be able to cause healing, to be able to extend longevity, to be able to lower inflammation so you don't get sick. And that includes preventing cancer by tipping the balance in your body away from the tumor and towards your longevity without cancer. All right. So let's talk about how much protein lentils have. So 1 cup of lentils actually have 24 grams of protein. So, you know, on a weight basis, lentils are one of the most highly protein-packed plant-based foods that you can actually eat. All right. How do I like to incorporate lentils into the diet? My diet, Pretty easy, all right? And by the way, lentils are not expensive, so they're very economical. And in terms of protein power and fiber, they are really hard to match, right? Okay, so here's what I do. I like to make lentil soup or lentil stew. In fact, I remember when I was in medical school, if I really wanted to be able to cook some food that would actually be delicious, tasty, satisfying, warming, that I could have some leftovers on, making a lentil soup or lentil stew was basically a one bowl meal. All right. So how do you make lentil soup? Yeah, you know, take a pot or a cast iron pan, little extra virgin olive oil, saute some chopped garlic and onions, chop up some carrots. All right. Add in the lentils, pour in some vegetable stock. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, all right, lentils are great for that. Or if you're not, and you want to get some protein, extra protein for collagen, use some bone broth. It's a great way. So now you're putting it in there, and then add some herbs, herbs like coriander, spices like cumin and turmeric. All right, now you're really beginning to flavor that lentil. All right, and then you cook it. And by the way, spices have their own cancer-fighting activities. They can be anti-angiogenic, cut the blood supply to tumors. They can be have their healing properties. For example, turmeric has curcumin, which actually accelerates healing. And by the way, when you cook that up, the lentils will absorb the fluid. All those other flavors with the herbs and spices, the onion and the garlic, and the extra virgin olive oil, which is healthy by itself, will start to commingle. You'll get this incredibly tasty bowl of food. It's a complete meal in a bowl with all the protein that you actually need for basically a day. It's got some veggies in it, prebiotics could be in there. You could put some carrots in there. Now you get some beta carotene carotenoids that are good for your eyesight. Important for longevity, right? You're going to live a long time. You want to be able to see clearly for as long as you need to, because vision is such an important part of enjoying life, no matter how many years you have. And then herbs and spices can lower inflammation. And also they light up our taste buds, right? So you want to be able to eat something that tastes really great. That's how you make a bowl of lentil soup, okay? So whether it's fall or winter or spring, I personally find lentil soup or lentil stew, if you want to actually put some more stuff in it, make it a little thicker, it's a comforting, warming meal that is super healthy and actually contains just what your body needs to help fight cancers, prevent cancer, lower inflammation, improve your metabolism, by the way, and help you live longer, and also for healing. All right. Now, you ready for my next legume number 2? All right. Chickpea. The chickpea is another legume that packs a punch when it comes to boosting your health defenses, which you need for cancer prevention and healing and living longer. All right. And just like lentils, chickpeas, great source of protein and a good source of dietary fiber, right? You can sign all of these up for the health benefits I talked about earlier in this video. And by the way, there are different ways of cooking chickpeas. If you look at Middle Eastern cooking, just type chickpeas, Middle Eastern recipe and hit video. And you can watch people who really know what they're doing show you how chickpeas are cooked in a lot of different ways, all right? Now, I like to cook chickpeas in a curry sauce. And this is like a vegetarian dish that you can serve over brown rice, mouth-watering to me. When I think about it, like actually my mouth starts to water, but it's super easy to make, right? So you get all the benefits of the chickpea plus the sauce, which is really delicious, and the benefits of brown rice. So let me tell you how I do that. Get a large, heavy bottom pot, all right? Again, just like the lentils, extra virgin olive oil, chop some garlic up, some onions. In my case, I like to put for chickpeas a little bit of red chili pepper, all right? If you like to have a little bit of heat, all right? Now, chili has capsaicin. That's a natural bioactive in chili that turns on your metabolism. So when you eat chili peppers and you get a little bit of that heat, that little zing on your tongue, it's amazing because the receptors on your tongue are like radar dishes or buttons on an elevator. Okay, the capsaicin pushes those buttons on your tongue and it sends a signal to your brain, and your brain will actually release neurotransmitters that go down your neck and activate your brown fat. And what that does is that actually burns down extra harmful body fat. So good fat burns down bad fat when you have chili peppers. And when you actually lower excess body fat, you're lowering inflammation. So in a different direction than your gut slowing inflammation, this is actually one way that if you're cooking chickpeas and making a curry, add a little bit of red chili pepper. That's what I actually do. And also, by the way, capsaicin has anti-inflammatory effects. I've always been really surprised about that when it comes to chili. You'd think that chili would spark inflammation, right? It's hot. Actually not. It actually quiets and quells inflammation. And by the way, so do the bioactives in the garlic and the onions that you're going to put into this chickpea recipe. So lower inflammation, good for cancer prevention. Garlic and onion are both healing in their natures as well. All right. Now you stir in some curry powder, add some cumin. Now you're actually getting a lot of different spices in there. It really activates your senses when you smell this cooking. All right, with chickpeas. I like to then add some crushed tomatoes. All right, so you get a little bit of the acid from the tomatoes, and it kind of really just adds some depth to the flavor. All right, so it's not just pure spices. And by the way, you don't have to grow your own tomatoes or even use fresh tomatoes. You can get tomatoes out of a can. Now, I like to use San Marzano tomatoes if you can find them, because San Marzano is the kind of tomato, the varietal, that has the highest levels of lycopene. That is one of the many beneficial compounds that's found in tomatoes. San Marzano tomato has one of the highest levels of lycopene. So I would go for that. And what does lycopene do? Lycopene helps your metabolism, helps to burn extra body fat, again, lowering inflammation, improves your metabolism, so you actually have more energy, which is good for longevity, right? It's what you want for longevity. It's antioxidant, so it protects your DNA, slows down cellular aging. And lycopene has been shown in the study of more than 36,000 men to reduce the risk of prostate cancer. All right, so the lycopene cuts off the blood supply to tumors as well, so the cancers actually can't grow. All right, all these things, you put that crushed tomatoes right into that mix, into the pan I'm telling you about, okay? And then what you do is you stir that all together, and now you've got this incredible fragrant sauce that actually is starting to cook together. So then in order to be able to blend all the flavors together and finish the dish, you can add some coconut milk if you want some richness and creaminess. But if you don't want to use coconut milk because it does have some saturated fat, you can swap it out with almond milk or cashew milk or another plant-based milk. What you got to know though is that if you use those plant-based milks, it's not going to be quite as creamy, all right? Because it's the nut milks have a lower fat content. Coconut actually has a lot of fat content. And the other thing you can do is if you do want to use dairy, here's another little hack you can actually do. All right. So dairy, let's say you're like, I don't feel like I want to use cream. What would you actually use? I don't want to use nut milk because it's too thin. Here's my little home cook's secret. Get some yogurt. Greek yogurt would be great, and put the Greek yogurt in there. And now and then you can add some nut milk to thin it out. Now you're actually going to get that creaminess from the yogurt that's out there. Now, if you're going to get yogurt, my tip to you is actually, if you want to use it to lower inflammation, get full-fat yogurt. Don't get low-fat yogurt. Let me repeat that. Get full-fat yogurt. That's right. Don't be afraid of the saturated fat. It's found in full-fat yogurt. And the reason is this. When you have full-fat yogurt, it's a probiotic food. When you eat it, it actually contributes healthy gut bacteria to your microbiome, and that's the formula to actually lower inflammation, right? So that's actually going to be good for you. And don't buy low-fat yogurt, because when the factory removes the fat from the yogurt, good well-intentions, supposed to be good for your heart, right? And it doesn't work out that way. When you remove the yogurt, actually the fat from the yogurt, it collapses. It becomes kind of like this, weird, thickish milk. Doesn't have any mouthfeel. So the manufacturers add emulsifiers, thickeners in it, carrageenan, chemicals like polysorbate 80. If that freaks you out to hear about that, yeah, that's right. You're actually thickening it up with chemicals. And, for a long time, we didn't really think too much about these chemicals. But now we're beginning to understand when you eat things like polysorbate 80, it damages your gut microbiome. Those additives, those thickeners, those emulsifiers in low-fat yogurt, which are used to give it the mouthfeel of like regular yogurt, they will actually damage your gut microbiome. Once your gut microbiome is damaged, guess what? Inflammation levels rise in your body. Totally not what you want to do if you're trying to prevent cancer. All right. As inflammation rises, it puts you at a higher risk for chronic diseases, which compromises your longevity. And inflammation actually makes healing a lot harder. So we're still talking about chickpeas in a curry sauce. So where I was, in case you got lost, is that, you can actually use some coconut milk to kind of make it creamy and thin it out and give it this nice, like kind of blending texture so that the chickpeas are in kind of a sauce. You can use nut milks, or you can use, but it's going to be thin, or you can use yogurt and then add some nut milk in order to get the right consistency. All right. You use yogurt, you'll get the probiotic effect of yogurt, which only helps your gut microbiome, which actually lowers inflammation as well. All right. And by the way, yogurt eating has been associated for a long time with longevity. All right. There's a chemist named Ilya Mechnikov. This is going back hundreds of years. Actually first noticed that Bulgarian monks who seemed to live a long time, he noticed they were all eating yogurt. And so he began speculating that there was something in the yogurt, like bacteria, that actually is healthful. And that's really one of the origin stories of understanding healthy gut bacteria. So you get this chickpeas, you got it in a pot or a pan, simmer it for about 30 minutes. The chickpeas will soften up, all the flavors will blend together. You're going to actually have an amazing, delicious chickpea and curry sauce. It's really, really healthy. And by the way, you're going to have enough leftovers for the next day. All right. Now you're saving money and saving time, which is important to me. All right. Okay. Next legume that I like, black beans. Black beans is my third legume. Let's talk about black beans. Yep. They got protein. They got dietary fiber. Join the party, black beans. They're good for your gut microbiome. They're good for lowering inflammation, right? You're starting to see the theme now, right? All these beans, all these legumes. It makes sense why the blue zones countries are all eating beans. The key thing though with black beans is that their color is black. And the black color from black beans come from a natural dye found in nature, bioactive, called anthocyanin. Now, anthocyanin, this natural dye, kind of like really, really deep blue, purple, and black, all right? It's what makes blueberries blue, actually kind of a purpley blue. What makes blackberries like look blue-black, purple-black, all right? So that's the same dye that's in a black bean, all right? And anthocyanins can starve cancer by cutting off its blood supply. Now, it's cancer preventative, anti-angiogenic, cuts off the blood supply to cancers. Anthocyanins, also a powerful anti-inflammatory compound all by itself. So in addition to what the dietary fiber is from the black beans, now you're adding the natural dye anthocyanin to ramp up that anti-inflammatory effect, right? Super important for healing, super important for cancer prevention and anti-inflammation, as I mentioned to you. Also supports healthy cellular aging. So your cells don't age as quickly as it did if you were inflamed. All right. So the other thing about anthocyanins that you have in black beans, the other properties are antioxidants. So they protect DNA, right? We talked about DNA damage a little bit earlier. All right. So DNA damage causes mutations, the basis for tumor formation, cancer formation, and the oxidative stress that occurs just in life actually can damage your DNA that causes aging. So if you want to slow down cellular aging, having an antioxidant on board, like, with anthocyanins coming from black beans, that's actually really great. So look, I talk about beans and how to cook with them in my book, Eat to Beat Disease. I showed you right here. If you haven't read it, I'll put a link in the video description so you can actually do a deep dive into these natural protective aspects of anthocyanins. By the way, anthocyanins also found in other foods like strawberries as well. It's just a great addition to all the healthy aspects already in a black bean. Now you're adding that extra bioactive anthocyanins to be able to ramp up their benefits as well. Now, if you like my suggestions for cooking lentils or curried chickpeas, you're probably wondering how I like to actually cook black beans, all right? So when I'm thinking about black beans, I'm thinking about a tasty Mexican dish. So how do I do it? Look, you probably can guess. Take a cast iron pan, a little extra virgin olive oil. That's going to have hydroxytyrosol and oleocanthin. These are natural bioactives found in extra virgin olive oil, all right? You can cook with it, contrary to the urban legend out there. You can't cook with extra virgin olive oil. Yeah, sure you can, all right? You don't be deep frying with stuff, but it's fine to cook with on a cast iron pan, all right? And by the way, why do I'm telling you about cast iron pans? If you're a woman and you're worried about your iron levels in your blood, cooking with a cast iron pan actually gets some of the iron from the pan itself into your food. And so you can actually build up your iron stores, in part supporting it by cooking in a cast iron pan. Okay, extra virgin olive oil in the pan, chop up some onions, chop up some garlic, mince a few cloves, all right? And then you've got extra virgin olive oils in it. Saute together until the onions start to soften up, all right? It's like 3 to 4 minutes. Don't burn the garlic, all right? So you want to take a wooden spoon and keep all this stuff moving around. Then add a can of black beans, all right? Don't bother rinsing them or anything else. Just put the whole can in there, all right? Then what I like to do is chop up some cilantro. It's a leafy green. It's an herb. Contains a lot of bioactives that are also cancer-fighting, anti-inflammatory. They help your body heal. Some of the bioactives in cilantro: gallic acid, ferulic acid, chlorogenic acid, rosmarinic acid. You don't have to remember all this stuff. You just need to know that scientists like me, we're studying this stuff, so we know that there's good stuff in cilantro. All you got to do is chop some of it up and stick it into this pan with the black beans, with the onions and garlic, and with the extra virgin olive oil. And by the way, then you add some cumin, all right? Cumin's a spice. It contains a bioactive called cumin aldehyde, all right? Now, this bioactive helps to protect your nerves, helps to protect the liver, also very powerful anti-inflammatory. So you cook the beans in the pan, all right, for about 20 minutes on low, medium heat. Don't burn them, all right? Add a little water if it looks like it's drying out. And then you can add some vegetable broth, or again, a hit of bone broth. You want some added protein or collagen. And then you're done, all right? Now you've got something, cumin and black rice with flavored with onions and garlic and cilantro. You can take a ladle of that, put it over some brown rice, or you can stick it in a taco, all right? And now you've got a tasty, delicious, protein-rich, fiber-rich, health-enhancing, cancer-starving meal, anti-inflammatory meal, all right? And you're gonna have leftovers as well. The other advantage, by the way, of eating beans like this is that it actually is very satiating, all right? And when you eat beans, because you're satiated, it tells your brain, all right, we're pretty full. You're less likely to snack between meals, and you're less likely to overeat at the next meal because you're just not going to feel as ravenous, all right? That is, I know I feel this way. If I have a bean burrito, for example, for lunch, all right, I'm not going to be that hungry for dinner, all right? So that's good because it means you're going to lower your caloric intake. And that's another thing that is cancer starving. When you go down on your calorie intake, it actually tips your body, builds your immune system, improves your gut microbiome, but it also tips your body into a cancer-fighting mode, all right? Anti-inflammatory cancer-fighting mode. All right, next food we're going to talk about, bacon. Now, bacon's a big topic because we all love bacon. Almost everyone loves bacon. I mean, unless you're a vegan or a vegetarian. But let's admit it, even if you're a vegetarian or you're a vegan today, when you were a kid, you probably ate bacon and you probably loved it because bacon tastes great. So let's talk about bacon. What is bacon? Bacon is salt-cured pork. And that says it all. Curing, okay, is processing the meat, and using salt actually puts a lot of sodium in it. And that's really what makes it taste good. It's salty, it's cured. And bacon can be made with different cuts of meat from different parts of the pig, all right? The most common cut of the pig for bacon is the belly. All right, but you can make bacon from using different types of the pig as well. For example, in Italy, bacon can be made from the cheek, the jowl, inside of the jowl of the pig. It's called guanciale. All right, absolutely tasty, super tasty. You ever made bacon with guanciale? Like it's wafer thin. That's very, very tasty. It tastes a little bit different because it's the jowl, not the belly. Then there's pancetta, another type of bacon made from the belly. Pancetta actually goes through this time-intensive curing process. It's also used in a lot of Italian meals. You'll find it on the recipe. Then there's prosciutto, which also is not cooked generally, but it's cured. And pretty much every meat eater likes this prosciutto, often served with melons and figs. And you eat it cured. They're at room temperature, not cooked. And then in Spain, there's also kind of a Spanish version called jamón, all right, made from a special kind of pig. That is also eaten cured, not cooked. Then there's lardo, which is actually just the cured fat on the back of the pig, back fat. All right, so these are different versions of a very similar thing that we associate with bacon. And I just wanted to walk you through that so that you know that bacon isn't just whatever you'd find in the packaged meat section of your grocery store. All right, but let's go back to breakfast bacon, the kind you'd get at the diner or maybe at a Sunday brunch that you might go to. The kind that's really tasty, but not healthy. All right, so I got to break it to you, but something that you probably already know. Bacon is tasty, but not healthy. And let me tell you why. Bacon is high in saturated fat. It's about 40% saturated fat. That's a huge amount of saturated fat. All right, and just 3 slices of bacon has 5 grams of saturated fat. That's about half of what's considered advisable by the American Heart Association for the whole day. All right, bacon is also super high in salt. Now, too much salt in your body leads to high blood pressure. All right, also called hypertension. You put a lot of salt in your blood, a lot of liquid gets drawn into your blood vessels. Now your blood volume is high, and that actually causes wear and tear on your circulation. And then your arteries can get hardened. And then the blood pressure is going to be high because you can't relax the blood vessels quite as easily. And that's hypertension, very common in women as well as in men. And it is a silent killer. Hypertension, high blood pressure is a silent killer because you don't always feel it. All right. Most people don't feel when they're hypertensive. Some people do, but most people don't. And being hypertensive, which is actually putting strain on your circulation, the lining of your blood vessels, is increases your risk of stroke and heart attack. All right. It is really, really bad for your heart and for your brain. And again, when you have high blood pressure and you got a lot of salt, it damages the endothelial lining, that smooth lining that is inside your blood vessels. Here's your blood vessel. It's hollow in the middle. Blood goes through it. It's lined by a layer called endothelium. Think about like a saran wrap, a plastic layer inside, and it's really slippery. When it's healthy, it's slippery because it allows everything to flow right through, like an ice skating rink. You know, after the Zamboni, the ice cleaning machine runs over it. It's so smooth on an ice skating rink, you can throw a sweater on it and the sweater will glide all the way to the other end of the rink. All right. Hypertension chops up the ice. It really damages that smooth layer lining inside it. And now your blood vessels are not only hardened, but they actually can stick to things. Things can stick to your blood vessels a lot easier. And that damaged endothelium is a setup for stroke and heart attack as well. So double damage when you have high salt and you have high saturated fats. Now the lipids from your bacon actually will likely stick to the side of the blood vessels, and now your blood vessels begin to narrow. All right. The other thing about high salt you need to know about it is that high salt stuns your stem cells. Your stem cells are naturally present in your bone marrow. They repair us from the inside out. Normally, if you got damage to that lining inside the blood vessels, guess what? Your stem cells get called out of your bone marrow like bees out of a hive, and they go and fix your damaged areas of your blood vessels. All right. They regenerate that lining. High salt stuns the stem cells. All right. It's like bludgeons them, knocks them on the head, brass knuckles. Now your stem cells groggy, not really sure what to do, and you're not actually repairing your blood vessels quite as well. That's not what you want. You're damaging one of your body's health defense systems for your circulation. Here's the other thing about bacon. Not only is it high fat, saturated fat, not only is it high salt, it's also a processed meat. Processed meats, I got to tell you, have a bad and deservedly bad reputation because they are classified by the World Health Organization as a class 1 carcinogen. A carcinogen is a substance that causes cancer. All right. Class 1 carcinogens, tobacco, which we know causes lung cancer and throat cancer, asbestos, which we know causes a type of lung cancer in your chest, a chest cancer called mesothelioma. And guess what? Processed meats also cause different types of cancer, like esophageal cancer, stomach cancer, pancreatic cancer. You do not want to get pancreatic cancer. Very difficult, almost impossible to treat today. Colon cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer. All right. Now, what are some of the processed meats besides bacon? Hot dogs, sausages, commercial pepperoni, salami, basically deli meats, the stuff we grew up with, lunch meat. The lunch lady used to give it to us in a sandwich. All right. Those are all processed meats. Now, we don't understand exactly why they actually cause cancer. Some people say it's because of the nitrates or nitrites that are made from a factory that are poured in there for preservatives, for tastiness. But whatever it is, I can tell you that eating processed meats actually is not good for your health and actually increases your cancer risk. So in fact, a clinical study of 470,000 people looked at the intake of processed meats, including bacon, and found that for every 20 grams of increased processed meat that you eat, for every 20 grams, that's not a lot of meat, the 20 grams is about 2 bacon slices, all right? It increased the chance by 18%. So 2 bacon slices, 20 grams increases your chance of developing colon cancer by 18%. Now, that's not one-off, like just eating 2 slices of bacon, but that's a habit, continuously eating that much bacon compared to people who don't eat bacon. That's actually what you need to be able to understand how to interpret that data. So compared to people who don't eat bacon, eating 20 grams of bacon and then another 20 grams of bacon, then another 20 grams of bacon increases your chance of developing colon cancer by 18%. All right. That is not something that you want to have happen to you, and it's completely avoidable by avoiding bacon. Now, here's another thing about bacon that makes it a problem is that when you cook bacon, you're frying it because so much oil comes out. You're essentially frying the bacon. And when you fry foods like bacon, it's generating, the chemical reaction from frying generates something called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, these are PAHs, all right? It's carcinogenic. And another carcinogen is called heterocyclic amines. Heterocyclic amines are HCAs, and they're generating AGEs, advanced glycation end products. And I'm just spelling these out to you because we know exactly what these chemicals are, and they are cancer-causing chemicals that in a lab, when you expose animals to polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, okay, to heterocyclic amines or to advanced glycation end products, they actually spark the development of cancer in animals. So when you fry bacon, you're causing some of these chemicals to be generated, and the darker and crispier you fry the bacon, the more of these heterocyclic amines you're actually generating into the bacon itself, right? So that's what I'm telling you, that dark bacon, you might even break off the burnt parts of it and eat the rest of it. But the rest of it also has these carcinogens that occur just by frying. All right, so people ask me, so Dr. Lee, should we avoid bacon at all costs? Like just totally cut it out? Here's my answer, all right? And again, like I practice reasonableness, all right? If you want to avoid all harmful foods for your health, then yeah, stay away from bacon. But like most things in life, some of the pleasures of life aren't so good for us. So if you really, really love bacon and you really feeling sneaking in a few slices for your breakfast, what you need to do is just approach it with eyes wide open. You know that eating processed meats like bacon is damaging to your health. You know that it actually increases your chances for diseases like cardiovascular disease and cancer. But if you actually are generally healthy and you generally eat to improve your body's health defense systems, a couple of slices of bacon aren't going to hurt you. But just recognize it. Do it with eyes wide open. It is not healthy for you. Okay? So let me give you a couple of tips that if you are going to eat bacon, what you might want to do to make it a little bit less unhealthy. Number one, if you cook the bacon, Cook it so it's lighter in color. Don't make it really, really dark brown, and don't burn it. Now, then you'll actually have fewer heterocyclic amines, fewer carcinogens, less carcinogens to it. Now, less doesn't mean no, it means less. So lighter color of cooked bacon. Number 2, here's a pro tip 2 to make bacon less unhealthy. If you're gonna cook bacon in oil, why don't you cook it in some oils that actually have polyphenols, like a little extra virgin olive oil, all right? So rather than use butter or use vegetable oil or whatever you might be using for cooking your bacon, and by the way, it's true that cooking bacon, you use a lot of its own grease, but guess what? If you add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil into the pan, and you heat that pan and put your bacon slices in it, your bacon will cook a little faster, which is good, so you're less likely to burn it, and the bacon will actually absorb some of the polyphenols from the extra virgin olive oil. Now, here's the interesting about those polyphenols in extra virgin olive oil. They neutralize some of the carcinogens that come when you actually fry. Extra virgin olive oils contain polyphenols that neutralize some of the carcinogens that are actually found in cooking bacon. So these are the little pro tips if you're going to eat bacon. The message I want to send you, though, is that bacon is not in any way a health food, but I got to admit, they taste pretty good. So if you're going to enjoy a slice or two occasionally, it's probably okay if you spend the rest of your time eating healthy plant-based foods, including for breakfast. You're going to survive it, and there are ways to actually make bacons less unhealthy. Because, basically what's happening is that fruits, vegetables, legumes, they all raise your shields, they elevate your health defenses, and all those things counter the danger of eating bacon and other processed meats. What can we do from a preventative perspective to prevent colon cancer? I think this is a good time to talk about that because nobody wants to have colon cancer. So researchers have shown that there are certain foods that actually are correlated with a lowering your risk of colon cancer, all right? Green tea is one of the foods that, beverages, that if you actually drink it, it contains a catechin, a polyphenol called EGCG. That's epigallocatechin-3 gallate, EGCG, all right? And EGCG is a potent inhibitor of angiogenesis. It inhibits blood vessels that the tumor might want to hijack, abnormal blood vessels, to feed the cancer. So when you actually cut off the blood supply to the tumor, it doesn't grow, or it can't grow as quickly, and so you're actually lowering risk of colorectal cancer. And studies have actually shown that people who drink 3 to 4 cups of green tea a day have a lower risk of colon cancer. Here's another food that's actually been shown to have some effect in lowering the risk of colon cancer from lab research. Guess what it is? Purple potatoes. When you go to the grocery store, you look for your potatoes. You got your russet potatoes, you got your white potatoes, and then you'll see these unusual kind of dusky looking, purplish looking potatoes. If you try that potato, it's actually really delicious and it's beautiful. If you cut it in half, you'll see the inside is actually a really, really deep purple. And by the way, here's a cool thing. If you put it in the fridge after you cook it, you'll see this purple turns actually blue. And it actually has got resistant starches that actually occur, which has featured gut microbiome as well. But here's a key thing. Purple potatoes are purple because of a natural dye that's called anthocyanins. It's the same thing that makes a blueberry blue, blackberry dark purple. Those are anthocyanins, and they are present in purple potatoes. And studies in the lab have shown that anthocyanins can kill colon cancers, but even more, they can actually kill colon cancer stem cells. Now, stem cells are the little tiny baby cells in a cancer that can turn into cancer cells and make more cancer cells. And this is how cancer cells keep coming back, or tumors keep on coming back through their stem cell. Now, we don't have a drug. There's no oncology drug or cancer treatment that actually can get rid of colon cancer stem cells, but purple potatoes can. And if you like purple potatoes, you want to try something, in my first book, Eat to Beat Disease, I actually included a recipe for purple potato gnocchi. I think I put walnut with a walnut pesto or a walnut sauce. Oh, about walnuts, guess what? Walnuts have also been shown to kill colon cancer stem cells as well. Purple potatoes and walnuts. So a purple potato gnocchi with walnut